Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the July 26, 2023 specially called Transition City Council meeting. Thank you for attending. It is always great to see members of the community that take the time out of their day to come and hear what is now the business of the city. So thank you all. We definitely do always appreciate it. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to our Madam Clerk for the roll call.
The Honorable Michael Owens, Mayor.
Present.
Honorable Ron Davis, District 1 Council Member.
Present.
The Honorable Dami Oladapo, District 2 Council Member.
Present.
The Honorable Keisha Jeffcoat, District 3 Council Member.
Present.
The Honorable Patricia Alk, District 4 Council Member.
Present.
The Honorable T.J. Ferguson, District 5 Council Member.
Present.
And the Honorable Deborah Herndon, District 6 Council Member.
Present.
And we have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With that, I'd like to move to item 3. If we could have Pastor Boyd join us in leading the invocation, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Let's bow our heads for a word of prayer. We pause today to just take a moment and offer thanks. We are grateful that we have come through this day, this Wednesday, and though there have been many things that have used our time and have led us over the highways and led us through interactions and through all the different experiences that we've had in this day, we are still here. And we still have breath, and we still have the ability to use our limbs and our arms and our legs and our various faculties work, Father. And we're just grateful that you've brought us with this new city council to this opportunity to make a difference. And I do pray that this time will be effective, but also pray, Lord, for the work that is done even outside of this time, for all the leaders that are here, those that are present, and all of our community advocates who serve tirelessly to make an impact. And I do pray, Lord, that our work will be work that remains, that it won't be just temporary, that it will be work that makes a difference in people's lives, and that will be better as a result. And so I do pray for our mayor. I pray, Lord, for all of those who, again, have raised their hands in service, and I pray, Lord, for all those who serve to make an impact. So now, again, bless this time tonight. May, again, it be effective but also efficient so that we, again, can get about the work of the people. We pray all these things now in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Boyd. And I also want to extend my continued thanks from the city of Mableton to the Epicenter and to your generosity for allowing us to have our meetings here. It's deeply appreciated. Yeah, and at some point in time, we will ask Dr. Boyd to spend some time, maybe during public comment or some other time, talking about this actual facility here, the Epicenter, where we have our meetings. We've given thanks before, but we haven't officially had an opportunity to allow him the opportunity to tell everybody about this fantastic facility, not just these couple of rooms we've been in, but the entire facility. So, Dr. Boyd, if you want to, at this meeting or another meeting, take the time during public comment to spend some time to educate and let everyone in the city know this fantastic facility, please do so. Thank you. So this time we move to item 4, the Pledge of Allegiance. And as my understanding, we have the Deputy Chief of the Cobb County Police Department. Sir, if you wouldn't mind, everyone stand and lead us in Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mayor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, that moves us to, thank you for that, appreciate it. Some of Cobb County's finest. Thank you, sir. I'd like to move us on to agenda item 5, which is the approval of the agenda. With that being said, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I motion to approve the agenda.
I second it.
All in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Hearing no opposition, the agenda is approved as written. And Madam Clerk, that will move us to agenda item 6 for the consent agenda.
Yes, this is the consent agenda, and a consent agenda is where you place items that you know will probably pass. There's not any conversation needed about it. And at this time, we have 3 sets of our minutes on there. And it was brought to my attention a few minor items, and I have corrected those. And the corrected minutes are with the council at this point. They know what they are. So we'll need a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes 3 sets of minutes, unless there is something else I need to know for the final minutes. If not, we'll need a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I second. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. With no opposition, the ayes have it. The consent agenda is approved. Thank you. At this point in time, Madam Clerk, let's move to item number 7, which is public comments. I'm assuming you have some public comment cards?
I do, and I do not have many. I have 2 at this point, and the first one I received was from Leroy Hutchins, the school board update. And remember, there's a 2-minute limit. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council, City of Mableton. Education update. So August 1st, school starts, so that's Tuesday. Schools will be back in session. Just added today was we're having an early release day on August the 8th, the following week, due to the lunar eclipse that is scheduled to happen. So based on just being safe, we're going to exit schools early so the kids are home way before that situation happens. We've talked about Pebblebrook High School and the $60 million in SPLOST projects, and our hopes was that it would be finished before school starts, and we are delayed by about 6 weeks. So this year we're celebrating our 60 at Pebblebrook, and that's the $60 million SPLOST projects, but also it is our 60th birthday. So during homecoming, we want to invite each and every one of you out to celebrate homecoming with us, October 20th and the 21st, and we'll give you more details in regards to that. But we will be celebrating 60-60. The kids will move actually into the new buildings in approximately 6 weeks, but we're excited about all the changes that are happening at Pebblebrook High School as it relates to this SPLOST project. So the Back to School Bash and the Falcon Flyby that was scheduled for this week at Pebblebrook will not happen. It will be postponed. But there will be an open house at Pebblebrook High School on August the 24th. So that will be a great opportunity for the community to come out and preview the new Pebblebrook High School, or the expanded projects here at Pebblebrook High School. We also want to talk about Communities in Schools. They are a national organization. They are a dropout prevention organization, and they have an expansion grant that has allowed them to participate in majority of our post-3 schools. It was a $1.5 million ARPA grant from Cobb County, but they also received matching funds from CIS National, their Communities in Schools national organization, so that they can help support our students to make sure they get cross that graduation line, but they're supporting elementary, middle, and high school. So we are excited about that additional support to our schools. Also, the former Lindley Middle School, or the Lindley 6th Grade Academy, which is now called the Betty Gray Middle School, the $10 million SPLOST projects that have come to that particular school is scheduled to be ready to go so students can walk into the building on Tuesday next week. And so we're excited that those projects are coming near completion. Also want to make sure that you are aware that the Cobb County School District adopted a millage rate rollback of 0.2 mils, and the resolution was confirmed last night at the Board of Commissioners meeting. And while it is not necessarily what myself and another board member wanted, but it was what the Board of Education we could come to consensus on. And just remember, lastly, to join your local PTA and PTSAs at our local schools, and also inquire about your principal advisory councils. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Denny Wilson, and that's the last speaker that I have. That's fine.
Good evening. My name is Denny Wilson, and I live in this area. right around the corner from here, as a matter of fact. I can walk here from my home. I've been a resident of Cobb County for 40 years, and I've seen where this area was when I got here. I've seen where this area have gone now, and I also see where this area can go under you guys' leadership if you do the right thing. This area has always been overlooked. You have people from East Cobb and West Cobb that says their dollars come here. You have people from South Cobb that says their dollars go to East and West Cobb, which is the furthest thing from the truth, because that is not true. I think our neglect comes in the form of leadership. So I was one of the biggest critics of cityhood. I did not want it. And I fought against cityhood since 2017 because I didn't think that financially we would be stable enough to become a city. But here we are now. So, Mr. Owens, I have a suggestion for you, because I've been told that you have been meeting with the county, just you and the city manager. You're surrounded by smart people. I mean, I've talked to 6 of these people. There's only one here that I've not had a conversation with. And you're surrounded by very smart people. I mean, I would suggest you taking them with you when you meet with the county, because they may pick up on something that you may miss. And I think it should be a group effort and not a silo effort where you're working on your own. I think everybody was elected to serve a district. You were elected to be the head of the people who serve these districts. So allow them to serve. I mean, allow them to have a seat at the table. When you're going to meet with the county, take them with you. I mean, let them have conversations with the county, you know, as well as you. And also, as far as these 2 minutes, I'm hoping you guys extend that, because I had a lot more I needed to say, and you cannot get that in 2 minutes. I mean, so I'm hoping you guys go, you know, past the 2 minutes, and you know. But I'm ready to work with you guys. I mean, I'm ready to do whatever it takes to get this city off the ground, to get this city moving, you know, whether it happens or not. We're here, and we all have to work together. You got a community that's out there that's willing to work with you. All you got to do is reach out. I mean, there are long-term people who have been in this community, you know, who have worked the streets, who have walked the streets, who have helped to pave the streets, helped to clean the streets. I mean, and all we want is just, you know, good leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the end of public comment.
Thank you for that, Madam Clerk. If we could go into item 8, just old business.
Yes, item 8A is the second read of the ordinance amending Chapter 7, Taxes, Fees, Assessments of the City of Mableton, Code of Ordinances pertaining to the hotel excise taxes. And Attorney Walker Ashby can provide background.
So Mayor and Council, this is the second read of the ordinance that will regulate hotel excise taxes within Mableton. Now, these taxes are assessed against hotels, and that hotel is broadly defined. And the definition that we've used, it's consistent with state law, but we've also mirrored a little bit of language that the city of Ackworth uses, because one thing that I noticed about their code is that they did incorporate recent 2018 changes that were made legislatively to the definition of an innkeeper. So I thought that they had a really nice put-together definition of hotel, so we've mirrored the city of Ackworth in that aspect. So essentially, this is based on the Carl Vinson Institute that did your feasibility study. This is one of the recommended major sources of revenue for the city of Mableton. And the hotels that will be subject to this tax, this is not going to be anything new. they're already being assessed this tax by the county. So it will just transfer the delivery of funds. So instead of going to the county, the funds will go to the city of Mableton specifically. And you are assessing at 5%, which is the rate that's allowed by law. And there are means to go up to 8%, which is the rate that is assessed by the county and every other city in Mableton. However, that's a step process that involves the General Assembly that you'll engage in at a later date at your discretion. So right now, you do have the lowest tax rate within Cobb County, but like I said, it's because there are, for this particular assessment, but it's because there are processes in place. So you are assessing at 5%, and that's section 752. It kind of just explains to you what the assessment rate is, and there are exemptions from that assessment for certain hotels, and those exemptions are under section 754. And those exemptions are the ones that are set by state law, so we've just mirrored state law. So if you'll see subsections A through D, if you're exempt under state law, then naturally you're exempt under the city's ordinance. So we've included those exemptions. And then this just replaces a requirement on the hotels to register within the city to, that's subsection 755, to pay the amounts, subsection 756, to pay the amounts 20 days after the month for which the returns are calculated. So they would be, the next month would ensue, and then they'd have 20 days into that month to file a return. And like I said, these hotels within the city are going to be familiar with this process because they're currently doing this exact process with the county. And that's basically it. There's mechanisms for enforcement, for collection, for administration. These are standard processes. Your ordinances has no major substantial deviation from any of the ordinances that are typically in place for this type of assessment. And the recommendation would be that the city move forward tonight with adopting this ordinance. And if there's any questions, I can entertain questions.
So just so I'm clear, hotels are being assessed at 8% at the county level currently, and will be reduced down to 5%, and that's what we are voting on today, correct?
Yes, correct. So within Mableton, customers will see a 3% rate decrease for hotel guest stay within Mableton.
And then when the General Assembly convenes in January, potentially, that could go back up to the 8%, correct?
Correct, in collaboration with your local delegation and your local representative.
Okay.
Any other discussions, questions on this ordinance? As this is the second read, we can move this forward and to adopt this ordinance into city law if we receive a motion to do so. I would like to entertain a motion to approve the ordinance amending Chapter 7.
I'd second that.
Or I entertained it. You made the motion.
Oh, I made a motion.
Okay, so we have a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. That's all right. Okay, based on that, we'd like to call the question and vote. All those in favor of adopting the second read of the ordinance amending Chapter 7, say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Hearing no opposition, Madam Clerk, the second read has been approved. Ordinance amending Chapter 7, taxes, fees, and assessments. Thank you.
The next ordinance is the ordinance granting the franchise to Georgia Power Company, and the attorney Walker Ashby will provide the background on that one.
Madam Attorney, if you don't mind, if you think it's in best interest with items B, C, and D, I know each one of them have slightly different caveats, but would you go ahead and cover all three of those?
Yes. So you would have to vote separately, but I can just give you
Yes.
a basis of all three. And actually, item B, my request is going to be to defer
delay
this
that.
item And unless there's an objection, we can just defer that and hold that vote temporarily to a later meeting.
Yes, please.
Okay, so with respect to items B and C, these are two of the franchise agreements of several. These are two of your larger utilities with respect to the franchise ordinance that was put into place last month. So in May, you provided notice to utilities that their franchise obligation would be accruing. You adopted the ordinance after 2 reads in June, and these two ordinances are a result of the ordinance that you adopted in June. And the way the way that the ordinance that you adopted in June reads is that the utilities have a choice as to whether they enter into a franchise agreement with you. They don't have to. And some historically, particularly throughout Cobb County, you have multiple utilities who do not enter into franchise agreements, and they pay their respective cities just on a monthly basis. A lot of the larger utilities will request to enter into the agreement. So tonight we've been able to negotiate and work out and vet these agreements with two in particular, Greystone as well as Atlanta Gaslight. So your item B with Greystone, I'll start with that one. And do we have, I know the representative, Blake Doss, is he here yet?
I don't see him.
Yeah, so he said he would be here at 7 o'clock, so he'll be walking in any minute. So if it's okay, I'll start with item C if that's okay, and then we can come back to item B, which is Blake's item. He is a representative for Greystone. So item C.
Wait, just to be clear, item C is Greystone.
Item D?
You mean item D?
We're starting
Yes,
with
so
D.
item D would be
Georgia
Atlanta
Power.
Gaslight. Yes.
Item B is Georgia Power.
She's going to D.
Yes,
We're gonna
item
hold off on
D.
Atlanta Gas.
Yeah, that one should be Atlanta Gaslight. So we presented this document to Atlanta Gaslight. Well, initially, this document came before you for first read last month. Was it this month? It was one of your previous meetings. This document came before you for first read. After that, we presented this document to Atlanta Gaslight, to their representatives. We were able to kind of just go back and forth and kind of vet. They have reviewed this agreement, they have commented on it, and they have requested certain proposed changes, but for the most part, this agreement is consistent with almost probably all franchise agreements that are within the state of Georgia. I will say that they have been very gracious in their negotiations. Atlanta Gaslight has been, but the formula for payment is the same formula that's used across the state. And that formula is section 2. So if you go to that, it's a technical formula, so I'm not going to try to repeat it here. It has a lot of acronyms, but that formula is subsection 2, and then subsection 1 actually grants the franchise. It grants it for the period of from June 2023 through May 31st, 2053. So this is a 30-year term. And it basically just gives them the ability to continue to operate within your right-of-way. And that's essentially it. So they have agreed to do quarterly payments, and their quarterly payment schedule will be March, June, September, and December. So their initial payment, if you look at subsection 4, this is page 3 of 6, their initial payment will be due July 30th, 2023, and then they'll have another quarterly payment that will be due on the last date of September, or no later than 30 days after the last date of September, and then that will go ensue on for the life of this franchise agreement. So I would ask the council, just for my recommendation tonight would be to adopt this agreement, subject to the mayor and myself being able to make any minor modifications that are non-substantial. Non-substantial would mean that we would not be able to address anything that's substantive. such as the formulas or the amount of money or the length of the term, but we would be able to make minor adjustments to, for example, the first page. If you see page 1 of 1, it says insert name and title. So of course I need to change that once they give me the actual signatory, the representative who's going to sign, so I'll need to make that adjustment. So again, my recommendation would be approval subject to the mayor and myself having the authority to make non-substantial and non-substantive adjustments. And if you have any questions, I can answer.
So for the, do I have the floor?
Yes, please
For
go
the
ahead.
length of the term, I noticed in the electric one, it's 35 years is 130. How is that determined? Is that at the request of the provider with their agreement, or is that something that we presented? I'm just curious about how the term of the agreement, like this one's 30 years, the electric ones are 35 years. Just kind of.
Yeah, so the agreements that I've worked with just in my career and the ones that I looked at throughout Cobb County, that's just, and I don't know if there's a rhyme or reason behind it, but I know traditionally the gas utilities, particularly Atlanta Gas Light, has just requested 30 years. And I know Georgia Power specifically requested 35 years, so. And it's been that way for a while, and like I said, I don't know what the rationale behind it was initially.
It's okay, thank you.
I have a question. In section 2, point A, it says that the franchise fee factor is like $14.62.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess my question is this the actual fee that it's going to be, that they're going to be responsible for? Which will likely be passed to, the consumer?
Okay, so the franchise fee factor would be multiplied by the dedicated design day capacity, and then that would be multiplied by the franchise fee factor active capacity. Now, I know I'm using a lot of words. I'm not a utility technician, but these are fees and processes and schedules that are put in place by the Georgia Public Service Commission. So it doesn't necessarily make sense to us, but the Georgia Public Service Commission is just set like it's designed to safeguard the utilities while also ensuring that the amount of fees that are assessed are fair to residents, they're fair to the burden of the usage of the right-of-way to the municipalities who are allowed to assess. So this is just simply a formula that's been used historically by utilities and approved by the Public Service Commission. So that amount could change, but if it did, it would be subject to regulations that are put in place by the Georgia Public Service Commission.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm trying to understand this. So this is the base with which the formula will be calculated?
Correct.
And because I don't know how to do these calculations, just typically, would that amount, like, when it's factored in, would it go down or would it go up?
It would,
Like with the calculation, like, if you're starting.
So if that amount increased, then the revenue that would be due to the city would increase, because it's multiplied by the it's multiplied by the franchise fee factor adjustment, and then that's multiplied by the dedicated design day capacity. So if the Public Service Commission allowed that rate to go up from the 14.62, or if that rate did go up for other means, then it would increase the amount of revenue that's owed under the agreement.
And so my question is, are you asking more about what the consumer sees versus what
Yeah.
is revenue for the city?
Right.
So kind of that stuff that we talked about before, like what is the consumer going to see when in regards to this $14.62 or outside of what they might already be seeing?
Yeah, so the consumer, so I'm not 100% sure. Now, I know that I've been on the phone with Georgia Power and Link today, and I know that they did communicate to me that they are currently assessing a franchise fee for the county. So I haven't seen a specific utility bill, but I do know based on those conversations that bills at least for Georgia Power residents, have what should be an acronym that's called MFF, which stands for Municipal Franchise Fee. Now, I'm not positive of what rate the county was assessing through their MFF, but residents should see either substantially similar or the same rate, just depending on what the county's rate is. And I know that the rate that's going to be calculated under here, it's a very difficult rate to assess because it's highly regulated by the state of Georgia. So we wouldn't even quantify this. This would not be something that the city we would be able to confirm the accuracy of the math based on the formula that's put in place, but we did not create this formula. So we didn't say, we're going to assess you at 3% or 4% or 5%. This is a formula that was created by the state of Georgia, and our responsibility is just making sure, as far as the revenue that comes in, that it is calculated based on the appropriate formula that was set forth by the state.
So in the formula, I tried to calculate it at home, and the dedicated design day capacity in the city. So it's based on the city boundaries and the number of consumers and whatever revenue or amount. How do we know that's accurate? Like, how do we know that this a way to check that the DDDC factor is?
So that would require essentially an audit.
Because I noticed the amount that with the franchise fees factor, it matches perfectly with South Fulton, but we have different number of residents and different number of consumers, I would assume would be a variable in this calculation. So I would imagine it would be different.
So so this is the formula that was provided by, so these numbers, so if that 14.62, that number is going to be adjusted based upon section 4. So if you go to section 4, the formula has no specific numbers in it. So what they will do is they will use the processes and the charts that have been put in place, and they will plug in the numbers based upon the data from MABLETON. So it may or may not be 1462, but that's going to depend on once they actually put those adjustments and those numbers in place. Now, as far as once that number is calculated by Atlanta Gas Light and those determinations are made, there is the ability to audit, but you would probably need a very technical, specialized.
So there's really no regulatory agency to verify that we're paying the correct number or anything for this?
Not that I'm, now the Public Service Commission.
Well, yes, they do.
Let
Yes,
me-
I don't think they're going to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they-
let's, sorry, go ahead. I'll allow you to finish.
No, it's okay.
Thank you. So I wanted to kind of level set here. We're talking about as it relates to franchise fees and what's happening. So as I think most of you know, that franchise fees are the funds that these utilities pay the city. They pay us to allow us to use their right-of-ways. Right? That is a fee that what they charge for that. They then, by law, are allowed to pass that fee on to consumers. However, they do not have to. It is not written in the law, as far as I know, for them to pass that on, or how much they should decide to pass on. That is up to the entity itself and then regulated by the PSC. So when we talk about determining what those actual, the methodology and the variables that go into that, that does have oversight from the PSC, Public Service Commission. And if I'm incorrect in that, Madam Attorney, please correct me, because it's important for us to understand that this is funds that are due to the city, specifically because of the right-of-ways that we give the utilities to be able to provide services within our city boundaries. And they then determine what that is that they're going to pass that along or not pass that along to our residents of our city, and to all of us, obviously. But that is something that they decide, that we don't get to dictate that per se as to what that looks like. But again, the PSC does have regulatory authority over it. So hopefully that helps some.
Yeah, that's correct. And then that 14.62 number, I wouldn't hinge on that, because as soon as they do the calculations for your prior fiscal, that number almost certainly will change. So the important part is making sure that they use the appropriate formula for the calculations, but we just won't know the data until they retrieve that prior year fiscal data and then put it into this formula, and then they will give you a payment and a return that purports to be what their actual numbers are based upon that formula.
And when will this one start? Does this start also, is this going back to June for when they start collecting or?
Yes, they
payment,
have agreed to
July
pay
30th.
to commence as of June 1st, 2023. With the initial payment being due July 30th.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Madam Attorney, I do not think Mr. Dawes has arrived yet.
Well, so you would need to vote on this one, on the
Yeah.
Atlanta gas
Yeah,
line?
just,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
And
Okay.
actually, I think that's him walking in.
Oh, yeah.
But you can-
Okay, great timing. So, so if there's no other discussion on this, I'd like to move forward and entertain a motion to adopt the ordinance granting franchise to Atlanta Gas Light Company.
Subject to the mayor and myself being able to make
Non-substantive
non-substantive
changes.
adjustments in the final negotiation.
I so move.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you. I call the question. Would like to go ahead and move forward with the vote. All in favor of adopting the ordinance granting franchise to Atlantic Gas and Light Company, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Having no opposition, the ayes have it. The ordinance is passed as written, subject to non-substantive changes. So at this time, we could move back to item C, Madam Attorney, which is ordinance granting franchise to Greystone.
Yes, Mayor, so this is the ordinance granting a franchise to Greystone Power Corporation. And this is very similar to Atlanta Gas Light that you just approved. However, Greystone is, of course, a power corporation, and Atlanta Gas Light is a gas utility. But we were able to present documents back and forth, and Greystone was able to have their representatives and their attorneys review the documents, and we have been able to come to a form that we think is fair and reasonable, and that we would recommend approval on. And essentially, it's giving Greystone a 35-year franchise to just operate within the right-of-way for their business purposes. They have agreed to have they have agreed to, so ordinarily they would pay annually in March, but they have agreed to do advance payments. So they would make an advance payment this year for June 26th through the remainder of the year. And with them, we were able to negotiate making that advance payment from June 26th instead of the start date, which I would recommend because I think that is a concession that is probably worth moving forward with, just in consideration of the fact that they are giving an advance payment. And then they have also agreed to do a 50% advance payment next year, because just keep in mind that if they do an advance payment this year, then when next March comes, you will have already received the revenue, which means that you would have nothing that would be allocated for that year. So because you are in your transition period, they have agreed when March comes to do a second advance payment, a 50% advance payment. So this essentially just sets out the terms for that. And we do have a Greystone representative who I thought I saw, yeah, okay, Blake Doss. Do you want to stand up and say anything to the council about this agreement, or do you have anything to add to it?
Nothing to add, just want to make a note for working with us, and look forward to working with y'all.
Yeah, and I will say too, just Greystone, they've been wonderful to work with. Blake has been his communication has been on point. He's been extremely responsive. And one thing about their company in particular, because we are dealing with all your utilities, is that they by far have, at least visibly it appears that they have way superior technology as far as being able to utilize mapping and boundary data, because we do have quite a reputable utility that we're dealing with who doesn't have near that level of technology and capacity that's substantially slowing up that process. So I will just commend Greystone for just investing the money necessary to keep your equipment and your processes in place to be able to help cities get and gather this data and put these functions in place as quickly as you've been able to help. So at the city, our recommendation is to adopt, and Greystone is actually, in addition to their technology being far superior, or apparently appearing to be far superior, they've also agreed to give their initial payment tonight instead of July 30th. So I believe if you approve this, Blake would like to come up and show the courtesy of being a good community partner and actually issuing that first check today. So my recommendation would be adoption.
With that said, and a check routing on this.
Do you need a pen?
I'd like to entertain a motion that we adopt an ordinance granting franchise to Greystone.
I motion to adopt an ordinance granting franchise to Greystone.
I second the motion.
I'll call a question. Go ahead and vote. All those in favor of adopting the ordinance granting franchise to Greystone, say aye.
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 All opposed? Hearing no opposition, the ayes have it. We have now approved the ordinance granting franchise to Greystone. And we don't have to wait to the end of the meeting, so Mr. Doss, if you would like to step forward.
Well, can you give me, can we actually go to?
We do need to hold on one moment.
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm with him just logistics of how he wants to do this.
Yeah.
So Blake, do you want to proceed now, or do you want to let them take on one item and you and I can talk in the back briefly?
I think I'll let y'all finish.
Yeah.
It's not got time.
Okay, so yeah,
Okay.
if you could just,
Yep.
after the next item.
And so we are, so with that item complete, we have item 8B, which is the ordinance granting franchise to Georgia Power. I think we're going to hold off on that. Are we going
Yes, if we can defer that.
Yeah. We're going to defer
a later meeting.
off on that item. And we will now move into item 9, which is listed here, discussion as essential administrative needs. Includes authorization for smartphones, cell phones, data service, along with computing devices and related cybersecurity and productivity software. I think as everyone on the council understands, it's imperative that we move forward to being able to secure city devices, cell phones, and laptops, so we could all stop using our own devices. It's not only a security issue, it's also issues for us to be able to communicate better and more effectively and more securely. So I think all of us do agree with that in nature. I have been working diligently with some others to put together some quotes, and that's based on the Georgia state contracted vehicle. Since we don't have our own, purchasing ordinance, what we can leverage is the vendors that have been approved through the Georgia state purchasing contract. So that's what our plan is, to leverage that. The initial needs around those is obviously to have laptops, and first I'll talk about laptops as well as associated software, which in this case would be Adobe Pro, a suite of Google Suite, and a managed software devices, or a way to centrally manage those devices to ensure they're patched, updated, and whatnot on a regular basis. We've gone through that aforementioned contract vehicle, identified a company called InterDev that is approved by the state to be able to use. They went through and got several quotes back from us related to that. The quotes came in from $16,000 down to $13,900. That was based on 10 laptops. We know we may not have exactly right now for 10, but let's say an authorization on 10 with the managed devices, also giving us Adobe Pro for that. One of the quotes that came in also granted 3-year support, which is also the cheaper quote. That was right above $15,000. With that said, there is a reoccurring cost of $385. What that $385 cost is the subscriptions for the software, as well as the managed service that we would be paying directly to InterDev for them to manage our devices, keep them up to date, and handle any software hardware issues that would come out of that. So again, as a recap from that, we're looking at a high watermark of $16,000 for the purchase of the laptops. That is Dell laptops, that's through the Dell purchasing agreement that the state has. InterDev and the other companies are merely subcontractors through that standard process. So that's $16,000 high dollar watermark, looking at $385 a month for the Adobe, the cybersecurity software, and the managed device software.
Is that for a laptop?
No, that's all together.
And is that paid annually?
That is negotiable, yeah, on the payment plan. Now, I'll say as we know from a financial standpoint we're in, InterDev has agreed to delay these costs to us at a net 90 and potentially further. But we will designate that before we actually execute the contract. The Google subscription that we have, or that we would be having, would be at $13 a month. That's for each person. So if you just say 10, that's another $130 a month. That would be for the Google subscription. That will cover email. We'll talk about that later. That will cover email services, our standard repository for Google Drive, our documents, also Google Voice, and a potential add at $3 per user for Google Vault, which will be used for archiving secure encrypted archiving. So those are the costs associated with the hardware and software that the council, mayor, and clerk would be allotted. And that also provides the clerk with a monitor.
What about her software?
It's included.
Okay.
Yes.
And does InterDev offer host providing services to support a website?
They do. However, we'll talk about that a little later because we are actually looking at a couple of different companies because more than just a website, but also integrated applications for constituent engagement, as well as document management and storage, as well as agenda management for overall meetings, so that no matter who you are, you could be able to see what our agendas are. Our minutes would be posted online, as well as Municode, which is taking our ordinances and getting them stored properly with the state. So that's actually separate from a communications platform perspective.
And that 3-year support is help desk support?
That 3-year support is hardware break fix and software patches.
Okay, but in the event that we have issues?
That would be through InterDev, yes.
Okay.
They are local.
They're local?
Roswell.
Okay.
Roswell, Alpharetta.
Both. And I want to just throw out there, as we looked around at different companies to do this, there's been a number of people who have opted to help and to assist. However, InterDev and the proposal that they put together was one that made a whole lot more sense, simply because of the net 90, simply because of the managed services piece on the back end that we'll definitely need, and their expertise in Google Workspace and in that suite of products. So I don't want anybody to think that we just went out there and said, oh, we like InterDev, we're going to go with them. It was, I actually went to Dell and said, hey, give me a number. Dell was significantly higher than if we were to go through InterDev. So the way that we went about and the way that Mayor Owens went about kind of talking with different people, it was not necessarily one of those things where it was a brash decision that said, hey, let's go and pick InterDev because we like their name and their color scheme. There's a lot that went behind it, and I think InterDev is going to be a great partner.
What were the other, so you talked to Interdev, Dell, who else did you get a bid from?
I talked to Flagler Technologies. I spoke with, who else did we speak with? Dell, Interdev, Flagler. I'm trying to think early on in the process.
Did we, I think we got a quote from Jacobs at some point.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Jacobs, IBTS, a number of different people came and gave us quotes and numbers around that.
But Interdev was the most cost-effective, is what you're saying?
It was the most cost-effective. It was also the most comprehensive. And you got to realize that when you start talking about managed services for somebody of our size, people want to do managed services for hundreds. They're not necessarily looking at it for the 10-person council or 10-person situation. And in order for you to have a managed service situation with a group as small as ours, it actually costs more for a company to do something to manage just us.
Yeah.
So their numbers don't look as appeasing as what they could.
Do we have any packets of those other bids? Like, I don't really know what I'm even comparing it to. I wasn't part of the conversations with it.
We do, and again, this is why this item is discussion, because I wanted to bring it to the board. Literally, we're still pulling things together and making sure we have what we feel is the best solution, obviously, to bring to you all. There were some that we didn't decided not to move forward with hardly at all. Now, I will say Interdev as a company, outside of the managed service piece, which is the $385 a month, all they're doing is they're being the vendor to provide the hardware and software. They're not making it, and so they're simply a vehicle, right? We go through many other vehicles to be able to do it. There's a lot of larger companies out there that we looked at, including Dell. They're going to be the same exact product, the same exact hardware and software, but at a different cost. They all work off different point schedules. So when we looked at it from a cost perspective, yes, without a doubt, they were the lowest cost option. Now, if we start talking about services and talking about designing things and all that type of stuff, it's going to be a much more expansive thing because they'll be dealing with us much more. But this is really a dollars and cents. I mean, the cost comparison is very clear. So, I mean, I don't, this is the first part. I do want to go to the cell phone part, but are there any other specific questions?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. So the 13 to 16,000, is that, it's for a lease of or an outright purchase of the?
Purchase.
Okay, and then the 385 would just be for the managed services after that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And of course, we'll have to look at refresh cycles and all sort of thing, but that's something that we as a city are going to have to create, what our refresh cycles will look like for all these devices. I mean, these devices are generally a 3 to 5 year type of thing, and then you have to go and purchase the next new thing, the next device that's out there. So we'll have to look at that. We'll have to create that whole structure.
From a timeline perspective, what are we looking at? We have a 16K estimate. So how quickly will we be able to purchase the laptops and the cell phones? And
So when I last looked at these items, they were shippable as of July 28th. Now, a couple of days have gone by since then. I don't know what the ship date is right now. But it's something, and again, we do have some urgency around this. Literally choosing the actual hardware was based on specs. Some of those specs is what our clerk provided for what she was using in Brookhaven, I think. And then from what Councilman Ferguson and I both looked at, again, both working in this IT space as to what we felt would be necessary for the jobs that we do. So it could change slightly, but we didn't choose anything that had a December availability ship date. So they should be available relatively soon.
Did you say they're deferring the cost?
They will defer the cost at least at net 90.
At what?
Net 90 days from day one invoice. But we're going to ask for something longer than that, which they have said that they would entertain.
I guess, do we have any kind of budget on, like, do we just not have the money? Like, we've started collecting revenue.
Well, a net 90, I don't think is outside of the industry norm. But it's not that, I mean, plus we spoke with them several weeks ago about this, so we are not committing the city to spend funds tomorrow that, I mean, I understand graciousness, but that check's got to clear first. So we're not committing to writing a check this week, next week, even if we get approval. We still want to explore at least the net 90 on this.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a different situation than being a consumer that's going to Dell to say purchase a laptop where you have to pay for it. Then when you go through a company, you generally get terms like 30, 60-day terms or whatever before you actually have to pay them for those devices. So it's a little different than if you're doing just going onto Dell's website and saying, send me this machine now. Does that make sense? That's why the net 90 is a good thing, and it's a general practice when you start looking at IT resellers and the way that they do business.
All right, any other questions about the computers and related devices?
I mean, I would like to see the other bid packages before making a vote on that.
Okay. So the second item I wanted to bring up was around the cell phones. Took a similar approach to our cell phones. The vendors that we spoke with was AT&T and Verizon. AT&T actually has a preferred organization called FirstNet that they work with, which is the public sector, government sector facing for AT&T. Those were based on similar quotes, 10 devices, either iPhones or Samsungs. That total cost came to right at $500, $510 for actual hardware purchases for the phones. And then at a monthly cost of $39.99. So that basically takes to $399, $400 a month in reoccurring charges, and a one-time cost of $509.90. AT&T offers a $2,400 promotional credit at the time, which they will roll that back after our third or fourth billing cycle. Verizon did not offer that. However, their hardware costs were cheaper, as in their phones were less than $200 cumulatively because they had more discount up front, basically.
Right.
But very, very competitive offers on that front, both, again, being under the Georgia contract for us to be able to utilize. Outside of that, I think both of them offered the ability, since we are a city and we do deal with public emergencies, that our phone lines would be prioritized. So that in the event of there's a catastrophe of some sort, we would always have prioritized and preferred access. So wouldn't pick up a phone and just get a busy signal. AT&T, however, touted the fact that they actually have their own separate system that would literally isolate us and government entities, public service entities, so there would never be a situation, whereas Verizon offered similar service, but it's just preferred. It's still on the same network circuit. So again, this one is probably a lot more simple. AT&T has I don't want to say the better deal, but that's that's what they are. So I'll entertain any questions around that. But again, that high water mark is $510 for capital expense for a purchase and $400 for reoccurring.
Were you able to get a Shurion insurance estimate in the event of any accidental damages?
That was not part of either quote.
But it's included.
It's included.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a separate line item.
Right.
And which one?
Both.
For both.
The $39.99
Yeah, that's the unlimited.
service plan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Unlimited talk, text, data.
Is that per user?
That is per user,
Okay, so the
yes.
509.30 cents is per phone, per?
No, sorry, the 509, we're talking total cost here. 509 is the total cost of 10 phones.
Okay.
Yes, and the 399 is the monthly cost. And then if you factor in the promotional credit after the 4th billing cycle, all of that is refunded back to us.
I'm sorry, $509 for 10 phones?
Yes.
Wow.
It almost seems unbelievable.
I know. That's a pretty good too.
Are you sure you got that right?
And there are flip phones?
There are current versions of phones.
All right.
Yes, they are.
It is not a flip phone. It is not a rotary dial.
So is there any other discussion related to the cell phones and the related service costs for that? Okay, so based on that, what I have heard is, as a council, based on what I've heard from Councilwoman Auk, I would like to entertain that we take a day or two and put the InterDev quotes together, although they're on the same quote. InterDev facilitated getting additional quotes for us. That's still completely valid because they're under the purchasing agreement.
But, okay, so they arranged the quotes to compare their services?
Not their services, no, the cost of the hardware and software.
Well, we have the other ones.
We have the
from-
other ones as well.
From Dell,
Sure.
we can show you the ones from Flagler, we can show you those, what those quotes look like, we can show you that.
All right, so let's do this. Let's
I'll show you that.
take the rest of this week, package the quotes together, share them with the council, and I'm quite certain we're going to find ourselves back where we were, but let's do that. Let's make sure everyone's comfortable
Yep.
with where we are with that. I still think our high water mark is going to be 16,000. I would not like to exceed that. And then with a reoccurring cost of 85 for the software, and then the individual costs reoccurring for the Google software. So have we finished discussion? Any more questions about the software, hardware, the Dell devices? All right, we will hold that until our next council meeting. Now on the discussion about the cell phones, again, having a high water mark of $510 for the hardware purchase and $400 for the reoccurring. Does anyone have any other discussions or issues with that? Because I would like to entertain a motion for us to agree to a high water mark to be able to move forward the authorization for purchase for those items.
I don't have any other discussion, I just want to make sure that it's not contingent.
One is not contingent on the other. No. So if there's not any other comment, I would like to entertain a motion for us to accept our authorization for cell phone and data services.
So I am going to say, let us proceed forward with the cell phone data service, that piece of it, just of that discussion that we just had, and put a motion for us to approve that.
All right, so let's authorize that, and Councilman Ferguson, if you could authorize that with an authorization dollar of $510 for the hardware costs, and then authorization of no more than $400 for reoccurring charges for that.
All right, I will amend my motion, that we authorize $510 as a high water mark for the cell phones, and then the $400 for the monthly reoccurring charges.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you. Call the question. All those in favor of authorizing smartphone and cell data services at the utilizing the high water marks that was mentioned, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Hearing no opposition, Madam Clerk, we will move forward and approve the authorization needs that we have for cell phones, cell and data service. All right, that moves us on to item 10.
Before we go to item 10,
Sure.
just to verify, when it says related cybersecurity and productivity software, that's all going back to computing devices?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
I had one quick question. That includes the Microsoft Suite, right? As part of for the laptop?
For the
We didn't
laptops,
make
it
a
does not. If we have specific needs for Word, Excel, we can add that. And keeping in mind that this is based on 10 users at the current time. So we can ensure that if there is a request specifically for Microsoft Word or Excel, we can add that. The Google Productivity Suite comes with Google Sheets and the associated comparables at a substantially lower cost. However, if there's a specific need that you have, we can entertain that. All right, if there's nothing else, then I'd like to move to item 10, and that is the city attorney comments.
So Mayor, actually, we have the Greystone item.
Are we going to have that?
Oh, we
Would you like-
can, yeah, it's, my understanding is that we're going to do it after this, but we can do it after, yeah, that's fine, we can.
I mean, I have no problem addressing it now. It's fine if you're ready.
Do you have the, or you know what, we can do city attorney comments, but I did put the documents in front of you that I need to give to Greystone
Yep.
for signature. So actually, I think the city attorney comments would probably be better to give
Okay.
the clerk a moment to execute on her end. And Mayor, I have no comment, but I'm purposely going slow to give Susan a minute because I know she's after me.
Yes, please. Yes.
Let's do this. Let's usually swear this side. Yeah, here we go. There's no testing.
They need to get this together.
The next item is the city clerk's comments, and I do not have any comments. And then we have the city council comments. No comments. Do you have any comments from the council?
Yes. Yes, I do. Good evening, everyone. There's a couple of things I just wanted to take note of and mention. First, and I know I said no, but I'm going to say something anyway. But the training that we've been receiving has been par excellence. I would not, I can't say enough about it and how extensive it is. There's a lot to learn, and they have been, GMA's been doing an excellent job in providing us some excellent training, and it is well worth the time. And with the brain power we have at this table, I really think it's going to make a huge difference on the success of this city and the impact and the effectiveness of this council. So I just wanted to mention that. The second thing I wanted to mention was I was really pleased in a way, well, I'll put it like this. The circumstances were not pleasing, but what I saw yesterday really was, most of you know that in District 1 there was a fire just a few months ago, and then there was another one in District 2 on the 3rd of July. And in both instances, it was good to see council members come together and actually work together to console and talk to the people. You know, the circumstances, like I said, weren't the greatest, and you don't want to see people in that way, but at the same time, what's the old adage? People don't care about how much you know, but they want to know how much you care. And what I see here are council members that actually care about the people, would take the time in 90-degree temperatures and go out and meet with people. At the end of the day, we can sit up here and talk about our credentials and our education and our experiences and all that great stuff, but at the end of the day, people want to know that you really care about them. And one of the things I always said in my campaign was that I was going to make sure that people knew that I was there for them. And I have no doubt that the council members here, as well as the mayor himself, they care about the people. You know, it's not about, we didn't get in this for the fame, definitely not the fortune. But we got in here because we care about the people. And I could go on, but I just want that to be noted, that we have a council and a mayor that really care about the residents here. And I was just really proud to see what I've seen over the past few months as far as cooperation and actually compassion. And with that, I will be quiet.
All right, thank you, Councilman Ron. And it's interesting because we're just talking about these two things, and those are the two things that I had on my list that I wanted to address as well. Given that I wasn't able to attend the GMA conference in Savannah, this orientation that we had for 3 days, we were able to get together to learn, to do some team building activities, and most importantly, to eat, because we were there for 3 days. It was amazing. We did learn a lot, and I just want to thank GMA for the effort that they put into curating the agenda for this 3 days. We started with Municipal Government 101. It took me back to college. And it was just hours and hours of learning about the opportunities that are available to us as a new city, learning about the revenues that is available to us. And we had external organizations come out as well, the Department of I think the first one was the Department of Community Affairs came out, Atlanta Regional Commission also came out, showed us a bunch of data about MABLETON, sectioned by demographics, sectioned by the kind of job we do, sectioned by income as well.
race, gender, just data that will help us make informed decisions for our constituents in the nearest future. We also had the Department of Transportation come out as well and tell us about all the great work that they're doing in our community. And it was just a great time altogether. And I am just looking forward to all of these learning opportunities in order for us to be more efficient as a council and also effective in how we operate. It's one thing I wanted to say. And the second one is also about the fire that's been happening in our community. It is very unfortunate. And the recent one that happened in District 2, we had a dinner last night, and very thankful to Family Life Restoration Center for hosting that. They hosted a dinner for the first one too, and they're just a pillar in this community, and I truly appreciate their support. They do all of this, for the community for free, and it's been really crucial in helping those who are impacted heal and just regain everything they lost. Not even everything, because they lost things that are very sentimental that even money cannot buy. I was talking to one of the impacted families yesterday, and she said that she lost a lot of things that her grandparents passed on to her. And the insurance company was saying, can you give us a list of how much they cost? And she couldn't even put a price point to it, because those things are invaluable. So knowing that they have a community that supports them while they're getting back on their feet with their children and their job and finding a new place to live is very important to me. And I was very glad that some of the council members were able to come out yesterday, and some elected officials as well, to support them and help them know that we are here for them. And even though we're sectioned by districts, we're still one community and one Mableton, and we're here to support each other when the need arises. So I will also let go of the microphone now. Thank you all so much. I'll be brief. I'll second Council Member Ron Davis and Councilwoman Dami Aladopo. The training was amazing. Working with GMA, they have been more than accommodating to us. And, we're going to continue to have great training throughout the year. It's continuous. We're learning so that we can make the best decisions for this community. I enjoy working alongside these individuals up here. It's only been a few months, but we've built, relationships, and we're continuing to build relationships. And we have an upcoming team builder coming up this Saturday. So we're continuing to, make sure that we stay connected and that we do the best for this community. So I'm just going to be brief because I can talk. So I'll pass it on to Patty.
Oh, okay. So there's been a lot of talk about GMA and how much they have helped the city council, but I also want to say that they have a lot of resources also available to the public. A lot of this information is not just, it can be, anyone can learn this, and I would encourage everyone to get on GMA's website, dig around, learn about government, and so you know what's going on too. And I appreciate all of you who continually come to these city council meetings and are engaging in the process and being part of your new city. So thank you.
So one of the joys of being in District 5 is that I'm always at the end and everybody's already said everything I wanted to say. However, because you guys know me, I had to put it together. So this is my kind of quick little letter. Mr. Mayor, fellow council members, citizens of the city of Mableton. When I ran for city council, I ran under the premise that I was looking to build Mableton together. That meant building the city of Mableton together with both this city council and then the citizens of the city. I realize I can't do anything on the eviction moratorium, which is really up to the county and courts. I can, however, advocate for those who have been displaced or in need today. Yesterday, I had the privilege of sitting with a family who was displaced because of the apartment fire caused by a lightning strike. And if you don't know where this is 300 Riverside Drive. I'm telling you that because you need to know where this is. It's in your city. And as I listened to this family talk, my heart began to hurt. Because this is a working family that is now battling to figure out how they put the pieces together because of a situation they had zero control over. This was a situation where had they been home, they might not have been sitting there in front of me to have this conversation. It was that right there, right where they were at. The transformers that were struck by the lightning was right by the mother's bedroom. And had she been home, she would not have been able to get out of her bedroom. And I realized that everybody has a story and everybody has a situation that they're dealing with. And I was so grateful that they were actually able to go to the Family Life Restoration Center, head up by, I wish they were here, because you need to give them a round of applause, to Luther and Angela Washington. They do an amazing work for our community at the Family Life Restoration Center, yes. They've got an esteemed board of directors. Dr. Ben's here, along with some other folks that are on that board. And they were able to go there last night and to get a really good meal. It was still on my plan, so I was able to eat it. They were able to visit the pantry, get good food, the type of food that they actually should be eating. They were able to go get clothing. The young boy, his name is, should I say? Jordan, can I say Jordan? Yeah, so Jordan, we had a long conversation, but he's a little pole, and we didn't have his size. So if you want to put something on Nextdoor, put the list of things that they need. That's the type of stuff that we need to be utilizing Nextdoor for. What really made my heart hurt, though, and this is the kicker, was that more families that were affected didn't come. And you know the reason they didn't come? Because they thought that it was being put on by those at the apartment complex to quiet them. We, as the citizens of this city, have got to do everything in our power to help those people who live right next door, those people who live down the street, those people who live in District 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We are one city. We need to band together as one city. When I ran, I just happened to be on, and I'm off script now. I just happened to be on a trip with my family for Christmas. And I happened to be in a country where I saw that a tree was down in this country. And the people, not the government, the people came together to go move that tree out of the road. Now, I don't expect you all out there with hacksaws and chainsaws, and my wife won't let me do it either. But at the end of the day, that's the type of community that MABLETON can be. As a 77,000 member community, we have a voice, and we need to advocate for, as the Bible says, that which you've done unto the least of mine, you done unto me. So I implore you that as you go about your daily life, as you think about what it is that you're going to post out there, as you think about what it is that you're going to do in regards to this city, you think about the fact that this city is here. It's not going anywhere. If God is my witness, it's not going anywhere. And at the end of the day, we have to work together because we all we got. And with that, I will probably did not say something I was supposed to say, but I'll be quiet. And thank you all.
All right, I'm going to make this really brief. I just had 2 points that I wanted to make since everyone has covered GMA and everything else pretty well. So I wanted to address 2 things. I want you to know that I've heard from many of you, whether it be by email, calls, what have you, who have expressed that they have put forward some either concerns or some suggestions to the council during public comment, and they're feeling as though nothing has been addressed, like we haven't addressed it. So I just wanted to say to all of you that we hear you. You know, at this point, we are, working diligently to set things up, or maybe we can have better communication. So I just want you to know that we hear your concerns, we have heard your suggestions, it's not going on deaf ears. And at some point, as we continue to deal with some of these issues for the city, we will be addressing some of the things that you all have brought up. And the second thing I wanted to say is that I've also heard that some of you have reached out to whether it's our mayor or city council and have said that you did not get a response back. And I'm not going to make any excuses for anyone because I know as, we serve you, and when you reach out, we do need to respond. But if you could give us just a little grace and understanding, and just know that we do see your emails when they come in, and our goal is to respond to you more expeditiously. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you all for your comments this evening. I think you've done a good job kind of explaining what's going on in the city and some of the things that we've been up to. I do want to take a few minutes, though, and provide somewhat of an overview and update of some of those things that are going on within the council and within the city, and things that we are attempting to do. You know, I think sometimes it's kind of like seeing a duck go across, and you know, at the top there's not much going on, and under the water there's a whole bunch of things that are happening. And so we've all got a lot of things going on, and I want to hit on a few topics. The first one is about communications, right? You guys come to our council meetings, which is fantastic because you get the most upfront, realistic communications of what's going on in the city. But our goal is to continue to do more things to let you know what's going on in between meetings and what's happening, maybe other opportunities to explain things in a little more depth beyond the governmental jargon type stuff that goes on. So we've already implemented a couple of things. As most of you know, how many of you have been to our Facebook page, the city government Facebook page? That's not enough. But thank you. I looked, we have about right around 80 people. So we do have a Facebook page, which we will be using, to make sure that we echo things that are going on, make sure people know when meetings are and things of that nature. So please go to the Facebook site and follow us there. We also launched an information sign up. And I think about 80 people have signed up to that as well. That basically is going to be the beginning of us having a newsletter sign up at some point in time when we can get comms out more regularly. But we do want people to go ahead and start signing up for that so we can at least start getting some initial emails out, let you know when meetings are, and some other basic things. There's also a section down there in that same form that asks if you would like to volunteer to serve to help the city. And there's a multitude of commissions, boards, authorities that were listed on there to ask if you would like to take part and help to build and define the city. Again, as to date, I think we have about 50 people that's at least said, hey, I'm interested in doing this. Take an opportunity tonight, over the week, the weekend, go to the forum and take a look at it. If you'd like to help, if you'd like to volunteer in any capacity, please fill out there. Now, a huge disclaimer on that, that's not saying that you will be selected or you'll automatically be on a committee, but it does get your name in the hopper, if you will, and start to let us know where people are interested in helping and serving. We've met, and we didn't bring this up tonight, but I think Councilwoman Jeff Coate brought up a little bit about the website and our communications platform. There's a reason why we haven't necessarily set up an interim website. Because number one, that is money that are going to be spent, or a lot of time and effort on some of our parts that we don't already have. And another reason for that is that we would have to migrate that site and move things over. Our goal is to take our time and build a world-class site that's worthy of a city of 80,000 people. That doesn't come free, and that doesn't come without a lot of thought. So we have already been meeting with several different companies. Just this week, Councilman Ferguson and our clerk joined myself, and we've met with a couple of companies talking about some of the specifics of what we would need to build out a site that would best serve you. And again, at 78,000 people and looking at transitioning services for the county, what do we need now versus what we're going to need in the near future, we just want to make sure we're putting a lot of thought and effort into that. And let's face it, without providing those services, a lot of that website would just say, go see the county. And we don't, we want to make sure we have substantive stuff that's there. We've brought up about the .gov domain before. We did get that sorted out, so the federal government does know that there's a city named Mableton, and they can actually provision the .gov domain for us. So we'll continue to move forward with that. There are some of you that asked about the boundaries of the city, and a lot of people getting it wrong, whether that's in the media or anywhere else. And that is largely because of Google. And I'm going to blame Google, because most people will Google Mableton and then use that boundaries that they have. I have reached out to Google several times about trying to get this fixed. Turns out we have to become a government partner with them in order to do so. I was like, here's our file, like, use our file, update it. That is not the way that they work. So it's more paperwork, other meetings. I'm actually going to try to dovetail that into some of the public sector work that we're doing for our Google Suite for the stuff that we're going to use, and hopefully be able to move forward with that. But if you see people out there and you see documentation or even the media that uses the wrong boundaries, that's a large reason as to why that is. This past week, or 18th, I think, there was the Cobb Department of Transportation had a forum about a new South Cobb Transit Center. Did any of you guys attend that? Anyone attend that? All right, so I became aware. I actually was appointed to the Cobb DOT committee on a study for this. However, what I did not know at the time, that phase one was already complete of that study, in which they had already completed a site survey which said where that was going to be. So I was kind of the new guy coming in to the meeting that immediately started asking a lot of questions about why this location or this area was chosen. For those of you who do not know, there's a South Cobb Transit Center, and at least now, the proposed location of that will be somewhere around Cobb Wellstar Hospital, somewhere in that general facility. I see your faces out there. I hear you. Again, this was a phase one thing that had already somewhat been determined before then. I subsequently have had conversation discussions with the director of Cobb DOT. I've spoken with Councilwoman Oladapo and Councilman Davis about it, because I do believe that as an entire city, there are certain areas that we desperately need transit in, and expanded transit and transit hubs. So again, I wanted to say that publicly, that we'll continue to have those discussions. There will be more meetings. The second, I think, committee meeting that I was assigned to has just been scheduled, so I will be bringing more of those concerns to that. I will also, as we move forward with that, we'll also have other opportunities to get your feedback about specifically around the transit hub, possibility of having even a second transit hub if necessary. To close that out, I do, however, want to ask more people to reach out to us, making a specific ask about transit-related issues or opportunities in the city. If you have an idea, if you have a problem, if you have an issue, bring them to our attention, because we will be working directly with Cobb DOT to at least talk about what our priorities are. One of the biggest, most important reasons that I saw to becoming a city is that because we can start to have our own prioritized list about what we want to see. And so it looks like the first opportunity we're going to get is around transit. So I want to hear your voices about what, and this is multimodal, right? This is bus, car, bikes, trailways, any of those things. Please bring those to us sooner than later, because those discussions are obviously already happening, and we want to make sure as a city, that you allow us to have your voice and carry that forward. So I want to make sure that we talked about that. If you don't know where to send that request to, I'll give you an email. You can send it at cityofmableton@gmail.com. cityofmableton@gmail.com. Okay. We have not spoken much about litigation. We've talked a good bit of that in executive session, but it's well known now that we have retained counsel. We retained the former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Georgia, Justice Harold Melton, to represent the city as outside counsel. That is, I think, all I'm prepared to say about that right now, but we have retained counsel. We will be defending ourselves as a city, and through counsel, we will progress through with whatever efforts that may be. What else do we have? As far as working, where we're going with transition with the county and things that are happening in that front, this is also one of those areas where I think that there may be an expectation that a lot more things are happening than actually is happening. We've only had 2 meetings with the county thus far, and one of those was with the Department of Tax, with our tax commissioner, which Councilman Davis did go with me to that. And we were able to talk through items about the earliest taxes that we could get in the door. And that turned out to be ad valorem taxes for our motor vehicle sales. I say publicly, I'm thankful to the Chairwoman Lisa Cupid and specifically to the Tax Commissioner Carla Jackson, because when we met with them, they had everything ready that we would need. And subsequently, because of that, we were able to move forward quite quickly with the Department of Revenue to ensure that any motor vehicle that was sold, bought or sold within the city of Mableton, that the city would receive revenue for that. And because of that, that actually became the first source of revenue that the city actually did receive last Friday. I think we actually did receive a disbursement from the county or the state Department of Revenue, making that the first actual funds that the city has received. So I think that is a milestone which we, within 2 months of the city starting, we've been able to hold council meetings, meet with the county, and successfully not only open an account, but have funds in that account. Right? And obviously it won't start there. I mean, it won't end there. We have a lot more work to do. We do have other meetings that are scheduled. The second meeting that we had, which took place at Cherokee Street, was not about transitioning of services. We are still honestly quite away from having specific conversations about transition services. These were additional conversations about potential revenue that we could get in, about having discussions about what taxes and who was going to do what, and talking about ordinances. One of the reasons we have a hotel motel tax that we're approving as a city is because there was discussions with the county about being able to leverage that between 5% and 8% and things that we were going to need to be able to do. And unfortunately, I think Councilman Davis could not make that meeting. We have been spreading some of these meetings around with different council members as the opportunities arise. I will have to tell you that as a council, we all have full-time jobs. The county, those employees have full-time jobs with the county. So their meetings happen, guess when? During the day. So anytime we're talking about meeting with the county or county agencies or county employees, that is during the day, which means the people that you see up here are not at work. So I think that's important to note. So between availability that we have on the council and the things that the county commission and other agencies are trying to do, calendaring can be a challenge. And it's not to say one bit that they are not prioritizing us as a city and working, but we are coordinating calendars and moving forward. So again, that second meeting was really about discussing all of the fees and taxes that the county was collecting, kind of juxtaposing that with the taxes that the city could levy, and then seeing who is responsible for doing that, who's responsible for gathering that, what it would take for us to collect certain taxes, and then at the end of the day, who is going to pay for that. And I will tell you, we didn't make it through the entire list, right? So the idea that we're having discussions about transition of services, that's down the road a bit, right? We're working towards that, but that's not quite where we are. That next meeting we plan on having with the county will be within the next couple of weeks. That is being scheduled at the moment. I think, and so to set the stage on that, I want to kind of wrap up with talking about some of these phases, right? This timeline of kind of where we are. This is our 5th meeting, council meeting. And yes, these are still specially called transitional meetings. And as you can see, the numbers that I was able to pull and get together were still coming in at 5:30 today. The discussions that our attorney was having was still going on, probably still driving here. So we very much still are operating on a basis, as soon as we get information, we're pulling things together. As a matter of fact, we said we're going to have this meeting today, anticipating that we could pull things together to be able to talk about them today. So, you know, I envision this as in 3 phases, and we're still very much in this first phase, which is of doing these transitional things, opening bank accounts and having these initial discussions, trying to get city devices, which is very much still, you know, the basic items that we have to do. Looking at from a funding standpoint, how do we get revenue into the city that doesn't require us to bring on additional staff or have outsourced necessary to get revenue in, which is why Department of Revenue and ad valorem was the first thing we went for, was because we did not have to stand up a department in order to do that, right? The franchise fees come in a quick second because the same thing. There's nothing that we have to stand up as a city or hire additional people to do so. Once we solidify those, we'll then move into hotel motel tax, which you guys have just heard, which will take some effort for us to be able to realize those funds. And alcohol and permitting, and then we move on successively down the road. But as we build capacity as a city to be able to take on those items, then we can start to look to levy those and then pull more funds in. And then as we get to phase 3, then we're actually talking about transition of actual services, that we have talked about before, code enforcement and sanitation and those things that are actually transitioning from the from the county. So keep in mind where we are, ladies and gentlemen. We're still 60 days in. We're 2 months into being a city, fully in phase 1 with this. We will keep working diligently as much as we can. Our next goal to come to you, and I guess for myself and our finance consultant, is to work to pull together a preliminary transitional budget. The timeline for that hopefully will be October. That will give us a few months to get some of these additional revenues in, see them balance out, understanding what on an average they may look like, and then be able to put together a transitional budget that will carry us through next year. Now, for those that may have concerns about the fact that we are, we've gone through some expenditures that we've had to thus far, whether it's attending training or getting laptops and computers, I can assure you, especially after a few minutes, that this amount of money we spent is not a fraction of the revenue that the city will bring in. So we by no means came anywhere near to spending anywhere close to the amount of money that we will pull in revenue. It is calculated, but these are expenditures that we've made thus far since May 11th that we've absolutely had to do so we could operate basic operations as a city. And I would say we've actually held off on a significant amount of those until we had revenue to come in to be able to do so. So once we have, again, some significant revenue to come in, we could look at some other things. But for right now, at the behest of the city and the behest of, I think, what all of us have said, we want to make sure that we're being fiscally conservative about what we're doing. Again, I know there's this push we want to see more, we want websites, we want these things, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we know we have revenue and we're doing this at the right time and taking our time to put the right things in place. So with that said, I want to circle all the way back to the beginning. We want to hear from you. And to Councilwoman Herndon's point, I want to make sure that we're hearing from you through the correct and exact mediums, right? Someone reached out to me today. As a matter of fact, I did peek out on Nextdoor, and someone said, hey, when are you planning on posting about the next meeting? And I said, well, we've posted in the Marietta Daily Journal, the Cobb Courier, we've posted on our Facebook site, we've posted multitude of places, but I, as mayor, did not post on my Nextdoor profile about this meeting. And I apologize to him for that. And we got to be careful about setting precedences by doing things in our efforts to get information out, right? Nextdoor is not a sanctioned or approved communication medium for the city. However, some of us have used it in the past, some of us will continue to. But please, if you're communicating with us directly, use a phone number or an email, right, to reach us directly, particularly when you're reaching out about specific things that we need to capture, okay? But we do want that communication to come in, and I'll apologize directly if I have not been as responsive as I can. I take all the time I can to try to get back to folks, but there may be messages on Nextdoor that I still have not seen. But I think as a council, I won't speak for anyone else up here, besides just to say that we're working hard on your behalf, and we will continue to do that. If you do not get a response, feel free to reach out again. Don't say it like that. It's no excuse for us not to return a message, but feel free to reach back out again. I will end simply by saying, go to our Facebook site, please sign up, please share it. Go to the information sign-up sheets. We can start getting your information from that. If you are inclined and you want to see the city succeed and you want to help, please go to the bottom of that form. Let us know what commission, committee, forum or authority you may like to join. I know I was long-winded in this, but I wanted to make sure that I gave a full update for as many things as I could in the time being about what was going on in the city. And again, thank you for coming because you get to hear and see a lot of this. And with that, I think I'll turn it back over to our Madam Attorney for any other items. Thank you all.
So Mayor, we have the last item, which is Greystone. So we have provided Greystone with a fully executed copy of the ordinance granting a franchise that was adopted tonight. And as I said earlier, Blake Doss, Greystone, has graciously agreed to provide a early payment of the check, and he has the check here tonight. So Blake, if you could come up and Blake, do you have anything that you want to say?
Really don't have anything to say. Just like I said earlier, I'm just happy to be a partner in the community, and if I can be of any help, please let me know. And I'll hand out my card. It's got my personal cell phone number on it if y'all need anything.
How much is it?
Thank you. I appreciate Thank you, Mr. Duncan. I appreciate it. It's good to see you as well, sir. No. I'll keep this on my person. Not losing this. Yeah, yeah. All right, so this takes us to item 13, which is the executive session. Madam Attorney, do you have any specific needs for executive session for this evening?
Yes, Mayor. Litigation, personnel, and then
Okay.
I would just, out of caution, add real estate, because sometimes the personnel topic can go into real estate, and just in case you bring it up, it would give you the liberty to continue the discussion.
Will do. Thank you. So based on the suggestion of our attorney, I would like to entertain a motion to go into executive session for litigation, real estate, and personnel.
I motion that we go into executive session for litigation, real estate, and personnel.
I second.
Thank you. Motion to call. I would like to enter, let's vote on moving to executive session for litigation, real estate, and personnel. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. We will move into executive session. For those of you that will be taken off now, I don't expect us to be in executive session very long, but for those of you all that are leaving, thank you for coming again. We do appreciate it.
Blake?
Very, very long.
Do appreciate it. I understand we were gone a little longer than I expected.
Yeah, well, 8 minutes.
No, it's not 8 minutes.
I didn't say that publicly.
You did now.
All right, so we are out of executive session. I would like to entertain a motion to close executive session.
I'll make the motion to end executive session.
I'll second that motion.
All right, all in favor of ending executive session, say aye. Aye. All opposed? With no opposition, the ayes have it. Madam Clerk, we have ended our executive session. And with that, hearing no other business, no other items to discuss, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor of adjourning our specially called Transitional City Council meeting, say aye. Aye. All opposed? With that, the ayes have it, and we are adjourned, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.